gather up the magnet set before me.
Good day, runners. This is Coach Peter Pym for the week of August 26th, 2013. And thanks to sponsor DeadSoundRevival.com for this week's opening tune choice. It's a quiet Sunday morning, and I'm a tad tardy this week for getting the audio posted. I normally post it on Friday or Saturday, but circumstances conspired against me doing that this week. But I've got my morning coffee, and I'm ready to go. So what's been happening? Well, I had a load of fun at last Sunday's BioK Bum Run. City TV's very perky Melanie Ng was there, guest hosting as the announcer. She acknowledged that she loved to pronounce the name Bum Run. Anyway, it had been a long time since I led a road race. But there I was, out in front with a commanding lead, well in front of the field. Just me and the lead police vehicle. Alright, I was on a bicycle, but you know what? It still is a lot of fun. If you've never been in that position, I highly recommend you volunteer for the job, as it does give you that rather unique sense of leading a race. Anyway, I held the lead up until the last 100 meters when I was finally overtaken by the race winner. It was also fun to see one of my 30-plus lady clients actually win the overall women's race, setting a course record of 18:07. And many of my clients have been on the edge of their seats awaiting what the registration and qualifying process is going to mean for the 2014 Boston Marathon. Well, on Thursday of this week, the Boston Athletic Association posted the scoop on their website, and it has set the field size for the 2014 edition at about 36,000, which is likely to mean about 4 waves at the start. Registration will occur on a rolling admission schedule starting September the 9th, beginning with the fastest qualifiers. Actually, those who have run 20 minutes better than the qualifying time. You can check out the deets of the qualifying process, or the registration process, at their website, of course. But it's looking like you'll need times much faster than the qualifying standards, maybe 5 minutes or more faster. So that means a 50-year-old woman with a qualifying standard of 4 hours may need a time of 3:55 or faster to guarantee entry. So even more prestigious if you do happen to get into the Boston race. But check this out, guys. If you can't get into Boston, there was an announcement this week that Pamela Anderson, yes, that Baywatch Pamela Anderson, is intending to run the New York City Marathon in support of the JP Haitian Relief Organization, which is Sean Penn's charity. He founded that after the 2010 earthquake. Pam, as I call her, said, "I've never taken on a physical challenge like this, but I'm willing to do something to show my dedication." Well, to show my dedication, I'm seriously considering donating my coaching services to Pam, although none of my emails have been returned. Oh well. And guys, when I do find out what corral the Baywatch Lass is assigned, I'll be sure to let you know. And here's an exclusive for you listeners. Last week I mentioned that I had been contacted by Lululemon to serve as a meet director for their upcoming event in early October. Well, now I can give you more information about what should be a really great party. It's going to be happening on the first Saturday in October, which is October the 5th. And it's going to be at St. Michael's College. That's a private high school, and it's at the corner of Bathurst and St. Clair. There's going to be a mini track meet consisting of 4 by 400 meter relays with all female and all male and mixed teams consisting of 2 men and 2 women. There will also be a mile event. By the way, the track has a rubberized surface that had just recently been refurbished. Additionally, there's going to be a yoga happening on the AstroTurf infield, and of course there will be a beer garden for socializing. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Although registration for the track events will be free, there will be a maximum limit for each event. But I'll keep you posted in following audios and on Twitter in case you're interested. Okay, so let's get to the topic of the day. Tips for training in unfavorable conditions. Seems like a good fit given we've had yet another series of days that are very hot and sticky in Toronto this week. What do I mean by unfavorable? Well, I'm talking about heat due to temperature and or humidity, and I'm also talking about wind. As far as heat goes, we Canadian residents will not have too many more hot days to contend with, but wind can always be an issue, of course. But then we can get some very hot days in September and October. Remember in 1984, the New York City Marathon, the temperature got up to 79 degrees and the humidity ranged from 96% early in the day to 65% in the afternoon. The male winner that year was Italian Orlando Pizzolato. Could there be a more Italian name? He won it in 2:14:53, and the late great Greta Waits won the women's in 2:29:30. Relatively slow times for those two runners. So a first point that needs to be said: unfavorable weather does make a difference. You may say, duh, like obvious, but I'm continuously surprised by runners who are genuinely puzzled and disheartened when they post slow times in races or in training when the humidex readings are around 30 degrees centigrade. This is why I encourage clients to log the weather conditions, putting in temperature, wind, and humidex on the day of their races or their qualitative workouts. So how do I define unfavorable, and how much difference does it really make? Well, with respect to heat, mid-70s to mid-80s Fahrenheit or 24 to 29 degrees centigrade, be it a temperature or humidex. The humidex reading is important because the temperature could be 20 degrees, but the humidity might make it feel like 28. Okay, so let me share a few rules of thumb I use for runners going 5 kilometers and longer. If the runner is a heat acclimatized, then performance will be slowed by about 5%. So for a 3-hour marathoner, that would mean 9 minutes, and for a 4-hour marathoner, that would mean 12 minutes. And for those that are not heat acclimatized, I assume about a 10% slowdown. So that's 18 minutes for the 3-hour marathoner and 24 minutes for the 4-hour marathoner. Folks who ran that hot marathon a couple years ago found that out for a fact. So I suggest you use these guidelines to plan your pacing for a hot race or continuous training run. You apply the factor and then start out at that slower calculated pace just to be safe. Now let's talk about the wind. And I'm not talking about hurricane force winds. I'm talking about wind that is quite noticeable and that you feel you almost have to lean into it. And for that sort of condition, I also suggest a slowdown effect of about 5% when you're running into the wind. So if in calm conditions you're averaging 5 minutes per kilometer, on a windy day running into the wind you could be slowed by as much as 15 seconds, which is why you want to pick a giant to run behind for drafting purposes. Makes a huge difference. Of course, in races that are on loop courses, there will be times when the wind is behind you. Another tip, which is the same one I described in my July 15th audio about hill running: when you're running into the wind, pay close attention to your breathing, and if you happen to have a Garmin or whatever, or a heart rate monitor of some sort, you can monitor the heart rate to keep the effort level about the same as you're going into the wind. But having said all of that, there will be those who are stubbornly trying to maintain the pace, without regard to the slowdown effect, and then that extra effort can result in a disastrous overall performance. One last tip for those who are into interval training around a track: if the weather is unfavorable, I suggest you lower your pace expectations by 3 to 4 seconds per 400 meters of the distance you are going. So that would mean about 7 to 10 seconds per kilometer if you were doing repeat kilometers. So you start there and see how it goes. Or if you still want the exposure to a specific speed, a specific pace, you can simply extend the rest periods as needed in order to avoid overheating, maybe each rep or after each rep or after every few reps. So if it's really unfavorable, if under favorable conditions you plan to do repeat kilometers with a 2-minute rest, you might go for 3 to 4 minutes in order to allow yourself to hit the desired pace. So far I haven't said anything about how one gets acclimatized. Well, the ideal is to have 2 at least weeks of regular, and I mean regular, training in the heat. Certainly that's rare for we Canadians, and those who can only practically train in the early morning are at a disadvantage. Wearing extra clothing and running on a treadmill can be a ploy. Actually, one of Canada's better marathoners, Bruce Deacon, who's represented Canada internationally, he ran 2:13:18 in 2002. He used a heat chamber built around a treadmill, and he had the temperatures as high as 40 degrees centigrade. But here's a good thing: once you are acclimatized, that is, once the body has physiologically adapted to cooling the body, the changes, like sweating more readily, remain for several weeks, even though you may not be training in hot conditions. Anyway, that's it for now, runners. Hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend. I'm off to do some pool running in the beaches. See you on the roads.
Worship. Cain and Eve will have their place sitting here beside me.